So let's jump into what we're going to talk about today, though, because we have a lot on our plate today. Starting out with the hottest filmmaker in the game right now, Ryan Coogler. As we know, he has just released his fifth film. It is crazy how big he is, and this is only project number 5. I mean, typically most white directors, I have to say, though, by their fifth film
Yeah.
are pretty big.
Well,
So,
Tarantino only has 10 films.
oh, thank you for the follow. Um,
Let me see.
I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, Tarantino's only. You're right.
He only has 10, so
So we should give it up for this brother to be 5 films in, and he's doing the darn dizzle. So
mm,
I'm a huge Ryan Coogler fan, and I like it because I like him a lot because he stays true to his storytelling, and he tends to he he sources from a lot of different materials and a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different people, but he still knows who he is.
yeah.
And you always gotta let people who know who they are. And
Yeah.
he's not out all the time. I
Yeah.
love people that can turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he knows when to turn it on, and I do appreciate that about him as a storyteller. So as we know, he just released Sinners this year, this April. It starring, of course, probably one of the biggest to do it right now, Michael B. Jordan,
Mm.
and it was about a pair of twins.
Go ahead.
Is
You don't need
I
to.
was gonna use the Phaedra one.
Really?
Yeah, because I was gonna talk about ROH. Okay, it's okay. We don't need it right now. It's fine.
I thought. Sorry, I did not know you would.
I was actually listening to the clip because they were talking about how much better the season was,
Oh
and
God, you can find it.
can I? I
Yeah.
can't remember how I found it the first time. Actually, I think it was on Google Trends.
Oh,
Mhm.
my bad. We don't want that reality television energy around us.
So this is the issue with rail work and the switchboard. Rail just switches off stuff that I have.
That is true.
Yeah, they okay.
Now, let me tell you what the issue is with you being in front of computers. You have like 400 tabs
I
open.
do have a lot of,
So
and
I
that could be
get.
the problem with my personal. I have been really struggling this last week because one of the reasons we went live once last week, and one of the reasons you didn't see me anymore is I'm a writer in general. I'm a creative producer, so there's differences, and we can talk about that in later chats. The differences between creative producers and financial producers and why they differ, and the fact that a lot of people in Hollywood like to make that distinction about which producer you are, which type of producer you are, because it is a big deal. It actually is. There's people who have a very unique skill set with being able to get people to write a check.
Mm.
That is not my skill set as a producer. I will say that right now. It's hard even getting a family member to write a check
Or friends, or like people in general, close
towards
close
a
people.
concept that you might want to
Yeah.
pursue. But I will say that in terms of, so as a creative producer, our our lifeline is our tool, right? If we're talking about what tools you use every day at work, our tool is our laptop. My personal laptop, my MacBook, is now currently going through some issues with its battery. And so it kind of took me out the back door because it's like an extension to me. It really is. Like, where I'll tell you, like, I'll take it into the bed with me. If we work in the clubhouse across the street in our complex, I'll take it in there with me and just have it is like my lifeline. So even though we have other computers in the house, without it, just me being able to cart it around without a charger attached to it and it charging 1% every 3 to 4 hours, it is it has been tough. So let me just say that.
Yeah. I shoot a text real quick. Go ahead.
But okay. So we were talking about Ryan Coogler. Let's go back to Coogler real fast. All right. So with Coogler, we we know that Sinners came out this year. It came out in April, starring Michael B. Jordan as twins, and they were twins living in a 1932 small town, and they were living in 1932 small town Mississippi. So definitely bypassed what people thought that this film was going to do. For some reason, I believe this film was going to do well. And I'm going to tell you why. I think it was the marketing approach that they took, which I feel like by them utilizing social platforms the way they did, I thought that was brilliant. I think him kind of making a return to
Thank you.
old school filming, that was something that was definitely I thought that was kind of cool that he went back to shooting on film. A lot of filmmakers are now going back to shooting on film, which I got to get with because I kind of came up between the digital age and film, like kind of going out. So film was going out as people were shooting, and also people were shooting more on tape too. When I first started in the business, so it was kind of a transition, and a lot in TV too. Like we literally went from tape to card, whereas filmmakers went from like film to digital cards. So it was kind of it's those two genres kind of differentiated from that standpoint. Okay, I'm gonna share this screen with you guys just so you can see what I'm looking at. All right, so as we know, at this point, everybody knows that Sinners had the price tag of $90 million that it took to make the film. And now, with word of mouth and just how we held this film up like we always do, as our people always do, with things we're proud of, things, when we're proud of each other, positive Black people doing positive things. This film has now grossed over 360 million worldwide, which is incredible. So we know he's actually directed IPs owned by Disney, such as Black Panther, IPs owned by I guess you could say it was Irwin. Oh gosh, now I can't remember his last name, which is terrible. But who owns the Rocky franchise?
I'll tell you.
Uh, he did the IP of Creed, which falls under the Rocky banner, which is MGM. And now he's kind of, by this success, his blank check might be even bigger.
Winkler.
Yes, Erwin Winkler. I remember this. Erwin Winkler. So Erwin Winkler actually was behind he owns the Rocky franchise. Okay. So with so much steam coming off of Ryan Coogler, everybody wants to know, what do you watch, right? We especially when they're such a successful storyteller, the first thing we all want to know is, what do you watch? What do you like to watch at home? So, or what do you like to watch when you're not creating? And he shared with IndieWire some of his, basically, what are his most exciting films and what he considers some of the most like hit movies in recent years. So, he's never one to shy away, which I like about him, from what influences him as a creative. And I always think that's kind of cool because it is, we tend to, as creatives, we don't, sometimes we like to share, sometimes we don't. We've gone to so many screenings where directors and producers and some cast members have been there, not just for not just for series, but for films as well. And one of the things that's so hard as a producer is producers don't always like to tell you what's in their toolbox, because they don't want you to they don't want you to use those tools and possibly take more projects away from them. So I do like how he's very transparent when it comes to things he likes and who's influenced him. And as we know, he grew up in the late 80s, early 90s in Oakland. So of course, Black cinema definitely it was something that definitely influenced him as a young Black man growing up in Oakland. And then, but as we know, as storytellers, our influences in terms of storytelling can come from so many different people, so many different types of things, genres. We could see a piece of art and that might influence us, like a piece of mixed media art. And so it could be something where it's a physical performance on stage, or it's, a painting, and that can actually draw, something that can draw a story out of us.
I want to hear yours.
What mine was?
Your influences after you can
Okay,
go.
we can talk. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
let's start with Ryan Coogler's list, which starts, and I want to watch some. There's a couple films on this list I've never watched. So
Yeah.
there's projects that
I think he did.
I actually want to watch because he's recommended them. Late Spring, which is by director Yashiro Ozu. Yashiro Ozu. Now, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, please forgive me. This was done in 1949. And the reason I love this, like, my dad is and he is a classic Hollywood or golden age of Hollywood film buff. My dad loves old films. But the reason that this stood out to me was that this let's talk about what this movie's about. It is a Japanese filmmaker that made this project. It's in black and white. It is a drama starring Krishu Ryu. I'm probably pronouncing these names wrong, and I completely apologize because I'm not fluent in Japanese. It's something I do want to learn, so please forgive me for butchering. I hate when people butcher languages because I just think as Americans we tend to do it so disrespectfully, so I do apologize ahead of time. And it's about a widowed older man determined to find a husband for his only child, which is a 27-year-old woman, Noroku, who is played by Setsuko Hara. And Ryan Coogler called the finale one of the emotional endings you'll see in your life. And he saw the film in his 20s while making Fruitvale, which helped him realize he wanted to be a father. I mean, I really want to watch this movie. So so cool because as we know, he started in Fruitvale Station. What? Yeah, no, the
The
next
next one, I'm gonna tell you why I was gonna say what's dope about that. Well, because I was gonna tie it to this guy, but go ahead.
right. So I do want to watch this film. I actually want to do a project in Japan one day, and I'll explain that another day why I want to do one because it was actually a friend of mine that told me a story about Japanese culture. She's Japanese and Korean, and it actually made me really want to actually do the film in Japan. And but I have so much more extensive research to do on it, but that is something, and I actually want to do it in black and white. So this is amazing to see this. But we don't give a lot of cultures as Americans enough credit because we're so, and even more so now, we're becoming so, you know, I guess you could say we're being put into this vacuum where we're just not kind of taking in so many other different cultural influences. And for me, I know that, of course, growing up as an American citizen, of course, American filmmakers are going to be the first to influence you. But by having a father that was an old film buff and actually really enjoying a lot of the black and white film, my father was born in the late 40s, so he really enjoyed a lot of classic projects. But and film noir being another genre he really loved as well. But it also helped me appreciate dialogue because there are a lot of older films are very dialogue heavy because they didn't have a lot of the, you know, stage opportunities
Yeah,
or the, just the landscape opportunities that we have now. And, just budgetarily wise, we had to filmmakers had to be very creative when it came to how to maximize their space and their days in order to get it done, which you're kind of seeing it revert a little bit more back to that now because films are so expensive to make and money is just like kind of, people are starting to kind of really crunch the numbers more from the top down. So I definitely like superhero films are still getting pretty big budgets,
yeah,
and so are older franchises like the Jurassic Parks and stuff like that. But you're not seeing mid-level films like you used to as much receiving bigger budgets. That's what made Sinners so cool. Hopefully, you'll kind of see a return to that with original IP kind of getting a little bit more dollars thrown their way with the success of films like that. So definitely want to watch this because I like why he said that this film sat with him, particularly in his 20s. Amazing. But he
yeah,
just seems so much older than his years because he's only 38 years old and he's just so mature.
yeah, for sure.
Seven Samurai. Now, one of the many reasons I'm not surprised he didn't he that he this is on his list. I'll tell you why I'm not surprised about
Other
this.
than it being on everyone's list, yeah,
Other than it being on everyone's
everybody talks
list,
about this movie.
Spike Lee talks about
Yeah.
it. And of course, Antoine Fuqua did a remake of a remake.
Mm-hmm.
So Seven Samurai, for those who don't know, actually influenced the Magnificent Seven, a
Okay.
Western. And, Antoine Fuqua did a remake with Denzel starring in the leading role. And as we know, the initial Magnificent Seven was very white. It wasn't as diverse as
Mm-hmm.
Antoine Fuqua made it. So this was, of course, based on this 1954 film by Akira Kurosawa. And basically this was an influential epic film about a motley crew of warriors hired to protect a village from terrorizing bandits. And what Coogler said he learned from him is it helped him understand the art of blocking and how to use natural elements like wind and rain in his films. I'm gonna tell you why I really like this, because blocking is something that I didn't get in. I did a short film a couple years ago in New Orleans. I didn't get enough time to block like I wanted to. I think it really, that's one of the reasons you'll never see that project.
Mm.
And I think you really, and I also didn't have a cinematographer that was interested in really making it good. So that's a whole nother story for another day. But I do think that it is important. I can't express how important collaboration is on a project. If you don't have collaboration, it's going to show. It just is. It's going to be so obvious in the final product. But blocking helps your cast know where they need to be, helps everybody that's it's so funny how you just see this one frame of what's happening. Definitely with a film like Sinners, it just looks so much more grand too, like classic films, because it, or like I guess more newer age films too,
Mm.
like I guess 80s, 90s, late 80s, 90s, 2000s, because they got big, they just started to look so much bigger.
Right, yeah.
But because of how many people you saw in each frame, because of the, the millimeter expansion that Klugler used. But the reason why I'd say if you're seeing a frame where it's just one to two, three people in there, and it just looks like it has so much more space, you'll be shocked how tight it is.
Mm.
Actually where they're filming it and how many, but when you look, if you got to see beyond the curtain and look on the other side, seeing how many people are watching this being filmed, it's incredible. And that's what I love about him. Okay.
Can I get jump in there real quick because I I've noticed and I've read about this that blocking has actually blocking has seemingly got worse over the years, right? Like
Oh, absolutely.
so old movies, if you watch like let's say a movie like this, or if you watch an old movie, and this is why Sinners was so phenomenal because of what he did with the blocking, and if you pay attention, it's a lot of movement going on in the scenes behind the main characters, right?
Yeah.
Now they don't even have a lot of extras in these scenes.
No.
They just pare it down and just really focus on the main characters. So a lot of times these scenes look really empty and feel really flat. So you know who does a horrible job of this is Tyler Perry, right? Tyler Perry,
Oh.
he doesn't because he's not a traditional filmmaker. He doesn't really understand blocking or probably doesn't know how to block. So you'll see a lot of times the main characters sit in the middle of the scene and then nobody's doing anything else around them, right? They're just kind of like standing random places. And now, I mean, back then, what made this dope, and like I said, if you watch Sinners, if you see how much movement is
Uh,
going around with the characters that aren't
particularly in the juke joint.
in the juke joints.
Like I think that's where the blocking, it's enough to intimidate the cockiest of storytellers, in my opinion, because I was, or just filmmakers in general,
Mm.
I was blown away because particularly when the performances were happening. Sammy's was just like, I don't even
Yeah.
talk. I don't even want to try to get in the ring with with Ryan Coogler. Like this dude knocks you out hands down with Sammy's performance. But I was also taken back with Perline's.
Yeah.
The fight happening in the one room, her performance, the dancing, the people stomping and clapping on beat with the actual fight happening in the car room.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I mean, just it just was just, I mean, if we were waiting to see what his top of his game was going to start to look like,
Mm.
we saw it, because it is a thing when you, I think Fruitvale showed us what he could do in telling a story. But when you are, and Rel and I both can talk, we'll actually talk about this in a little bit after we get through this list. Well, later when we talk about Real Housewives of Atlanta, when you're doing someone else's IP, it's so much harder because you also are dealing with a bunch of people over you that have a vision of what they believe it should look like.
Yeah.
So, with him working with Disney for years, with him working with MGM and doing the Creed series, even as a producer on it and not as a director, he was still handcuffed to basically, yes, I'm not saying he's not proud of his work of doing that, because we were all proud to see Black Panther come to fruition. We were all proud to see Wakanda Forever. We were all proud to see every Creed. even up to the actor he mentored directing the third one. We were all very proud of it. Getting introduced to Stephen Kate. Oh, I always forget his last name.
Mm.
But Capel,
Yeah,
Stephen Capel,
yeah, right.
Jr. doing the second one. He put other filmmakers in our eyesight, where we got to see him do Transformers as a result. Then of course Michael B. Jordan is now growing as a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
We also got to see Shaka, he produced, of course, Judas and the Black Messiah. Ryan Coogler did, so we got to meet Shaka, who I think has an incredible eye. I know there's a lot of people who've been critical of Judas and the Black Messiah. Somebody,
For different reasons, though.
for different reasons. For those that you know have seen enough old tape of Fred Hampton.
Yeah.
For me, I just thought it was a fantastic film.
Well, he's starting to do the Spike Lee effect, right? Where you can start connecting people back to Spike Lee, Spike Lee influenced. Now Ryan
Now
Coogler is
he's becoming that.
getting branches of people that he's
Yeah,
influenced and
which
putting
is a
opportunities.
which is amazing.
Yeah.
Because he's doing it and he's not even 40.
Yeah.
I just think
And that's all you want to do, right? You
that's
want
all
to be impactful.
you want to be impactful. That's what storytelling is. And I think that's incredible. So I love that he said that. I love that you explained what makes his different versus the Tyler Perry. It's like, why? Because I think people need to understand why people are so critical of Tyler Perry. Like,
Yeah.
people think we just come for Tyler Perry just to come for Tyler Perry. When you work in this industry and you have seen some people do it very well, and then you just kind of see someone as a billionaire and they're like half doing it, it is a little like, and not even half, like kind of just like showing up. It is a tough pill to swallow. I will admit that. I will, very honestly, because if I could tell you how many people, like, you all could just go online and see people who post on YouTube their films. These are people that want to do it. It doesn't even matter if they're going to get the opportunity. They just want to do it. You can go on LinkedIn and see people pitching their ideas and concepts and scripts or treatments or outlines or whatever, just so they can get their foot in the door. And he has, like, deals with several platforms, and we're getting like the 20th Medea film. It's like, wow.
One more thing about 7-7. Well, not about 7-7. Akira Kurosawa. It the movie, which you're looking forward to, High and Low.
Yes,
He's the director.
He's the director. So again, he influences. Thank you, honey.
Yeah.
That was a good, nice fact. And I also like that. Again, Japanese filmmaking. Those of you that are anime lovers,
Oh yeah.
you already know they can tell a story out the wazoo. So I'm so excited to see that. Of course, it influences two great filmmakers like himself and Spike Lee.
Yeah.
So not surprised to see this one on his list. Okay, I need to watch this one because Michael Mann, I do tend to give Michael Mann a little bit of a hard time. But I always say his first one out the gate is when he gets into sequel land. We'll start to get into a little
sequel
trouble.
land. Hold on, brother. Roll it back. Roll it back.
So, of course, he selected this in his Criterion Closet, is what they're calling it. And let me actually go back up to explain what Criterion Closet series, because I don't know.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, he did actual Criterion Closet. So he went into Criterion Closet and told you. So Thief, directed by Michael Mann, 1981. Okay, this stars one of my favorites. I don't know how many people agree with me or not. James Caan, the late great James Caan. We love him, of course, from The Godfather. He played Sonny. So this was actually Michael Mann's breakout feature film debut. This is a 1981 neo-noir, which means film noir, of course, is classic black and white. It's, you don't trust anybody in film noir. Everybody's a suspect. But he is a professional thief and safecracking expert attempting to escape the criminal life after one last job. So kind of like a take on the Italian Job without like the Italian Job. And the reason Coogler loves this film, he praises the film's sense of style. So it, especially like the rain slick streets of the film, that would become a Mann signature. Okay, so those who aren't familiar with Michael Mann, let me show you guys who Michael Mann is. Okay, So this is what Michael Mann is known for. He has been, we'll go to his Wikipedia. He's from Chicago. Shout out to those who are from Chicago. Michael Mann actually rose to prominence with Hawaii Five-O. Those of us that know, he did start in the beginning with a, you know, like his first, he did Insurrection on NBC in 1970. Let me make sure. No, it's a news program. Sorry. Oh, no. He shot footage for a documentary in Paris. And, he's been active since 1968. So Michael Mann, just so I can kind of, because I'm kind of all over the place, I want to give you guys like what his filmography is so you get an idea of who Michael Mann is. He is known, of course, for Ali. For those of you that remembered, like, Will Smith, one of his first nominations for Academy Award was when he played Muhammad Ali. What?
I said Miami Vice. I know how you feel about that movie.
Yeah, he did The Last of the Mohicans, which of course was another
Great movie.
acclaimed film.
Manhunter, I heard it was a good movie too.
He did Heat,
which was another good movie.
He did Collateral,
which was a great movie. Jamie Foxx,
great, and Tom Cruise, and then of course Miami Vice probably wasn't his best one.
And same thing with Public Enemies. That's what.
And Ferrari, that wasn't
Johnny
the best
Depp.
one either.
Man.
But
he gets good talent though, because
he definitely does great talent.
Because he worked with a lot of Oscar winners.
I felt like I wanted to find his other, because I was wondering where his TV, his filmography. Here we go. Because he's done a lot of television. Okay. Where I know Michael Mann from as a little girl, my parents loved Miami Vice. And so Michael Mann is really well known, for that. He also was a producer on Hancock. He and Will Smith, developed a really good relationship. And so they've worked together on a couple of projects, of course, Ali and Hancock. He also worked on Ford versus Ferrari as an executive producer, which, was fantastic with the sound design on that film and just in terms of the visual blocking and the visual storytelling on that was fantastic as well. He also, of course, he was a executive producer on another great documentary series. I don't know if many of you seen this one, The True Story of the LA Lakers Legacy, which was on Hulu. So
One quick too about Miami Vice. I know I keep interrupting because I didn't really watch it growing up because I was a little bit young, but watching it back and I realized like making what's the black dude?
Philip Michael Thomas.
Philip, like him being a sex symbol
Yeah.
on network television during
Back
that
then,
time, that
during the
wasn't really
80s.
common. Like usually we would be portrayed as like the drug dealers, the pimp, the et cetera, et cetera. And to have him as a cop and him being like I said, a nice looking man. And I think that was like, I got to give him credit for putting a black man in that role on network television because before then it was on network television. Was it in the heat of the night?
In the heat of the night, yeah.
Right, like so that tells you how many. If I can remember exactly how many shows were portraying us as like positive people in the community, it tells you like he did do something that was uncommon. So I give him props as being somewhat of a pioneer in that realm for black actors.
No, definitely. And I'm hard. Rel jokes about me being hard on Michael Mann is because when we went to go see Ali, I saw it with my family and I remember my parents in particular, because they were such Miami Vice fans, when it was on television, my mom saying, okay, it felt like we were watching like Muhammad Ali to a Miami Vice soundtrack. Because it was so much music. It was a lot of music and it was just like you were dipping in and out of Ali's life and not having, and I do think it was one of Will Smith's best performances in my opinion. I mean, because I forgot it was Will Smith. I'm not even, and there's not every role that I forget it was him. So I thought that he did an exceptional job in in terms of directing him as Ali. But I mean, he's worked on some great projects. I mean, you just see here, like he produced The Aviator, which was based on Howard Hughes.
Oh yeah.
He also
was nominated.
He was nominated for Best Picture, but lost that year to $1 Million Baby. Of course, he did try to he tried to do a film version of Miami Vice. That was kind of like with an up and coming Colin Farrell and a Jamie Foxx. Collateral, of course, was fantastic with Jamie Foxx, and look the Jamie Foxx was nominated for an Academy Award for Collateral. So, and then of course Tom Cruise was in that as well. So he's done some incredible work, and so this is one of Ryan Coogler's other ones. I do want to watch this, and I love how he talks about using natural elements, even if you have to simulate them now. That is so hard to do, using natural elements like wind and rain and all of that. Just incredibly difficult. So we gotta give it up to him for that. Give it up to filmmakers who can block and use those natural elements. Okay, no shocker here. I'm gonna, Spike Lee has probably influenced so much of Black film culture. It's not even funny. Like, there's probably very few Black filmmakers, I don't know if there's any, that can't say that Spike Lee didn't influence them. And if they do, I'm telling you, because he came out the gate and did it his way, which is incredible. Do the Right Thing. One of our personal favorites, 1989. So during a screening of Black Panther in 2018, he revealed it was 5 films that Ryan Coogler revealed at BAM, Brooklyn Academy of Music, that it was one of the 5 films he considered his favorite, saying that it had a tremendous impact on his life. So he said 2 films from Spike Lee were a huge impact on his life. And the reason this one was because it's explored the racial tensions in Brooklyn, in a Brooklyn neighborhood, over the course of one long summer day. Now, as a fellow New Yorker sitting right here, you probably remember the tensions boiling. You were really little though then, but boiling over in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s in New York. But he said the way Spike made, this is what Ryan Coogler said, the way Spike made Brooklyn feel, he had never been to New York, but seeing that as a kid, he was like, I gotta go to that place. It just felt alive. It felt like home. That's what he said during the screening. And he said, when I wanted to make movies, I wanted to make a movie that felt like home and feel as real as Do the Right Thing. That's heavy.
Yeah, well, you think about Fruitvale Station, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I know you saw it. I haven't seen Fruitvale Station. And I'll be honest. The truth is, because I know how it's gonna end. And like I'm sure it's a phenomenal movie, but because you know the real story, I didn't watch it. But I get the sense of like, because this is a day in the life. Because Oscar Grant was like the last day of his life, and this was one.
Reflection.
This is actually the course of a day. So it's like you could definitely see the inspiration, even though this was a little lighter. It did end a little bit more, as it got a little, as the
It got
tension
darker,
built,
yeah.
it got darker. But you can definitely see the similarities in that style of storytelling, all the racial tensions within a day, and watching. And it's funny that they show Radio Raheem, because it's basically, if you think about it, I never thought about it. It's the last day of his life.
It's the rest of his life, yeah.
I didn't even think about it. It's the last damn day of his life.
That's crazy. And how you look at it, and because it was so much texture that he had in the story, so many characters that you were trying to kind of become, get to know and become familiar with, that you weren't even thinking about the fact, like Radio Raheem was such a huge part of the story, but you weren't fully thinking about that. And he also showed up where he initially adapted the Love and Hate from. Spike Lee did.
Yeah.
The finger rings.
Oh yeah.
And each other. Okay. Of course, not surprised here. Of course, also with Ryan Coogler being a California native. Boys in the Hood. I can still remember when this came out. Directed by the late, great John Singleton. Coogler named this as one of his favorites during a screening also at BAM. He said it was Boys in the Hood. He said the breakout debut film of John Singleton, starring Cuba Gooding Jr., Ice Cube, and Morris Chestnut, as 3 teen boys growing up in a South Central Los Angeles neighborhood ruled by gang warfare. The film was critically acclaimed and made Singleton the first Black man to receive a Best Director nomination at the Oscars. I remember that too. Coogler says, it wasn't a movie to me. I was seeing Black folks on 100-foot screen. He said, I was just devastated after Boys. So I think that, right here we see pictured Cuba Gooding Jr., of course, Nia Long, who played his girlfriend in the film. I will say that too. I think the thing about it is I take it for granted being able to see people that look like me on the screen as a child because my parents didn't get to see that. And so my parents are, had children a little bit later, so they you of course grew up in the 50s and 60s where it was a lot of change happening, but it was happening at Black folks doing a lot of sacrificing their bodies, their lives to just be able to have civil rights, right? Forget a lot of the things we take for granted now, but just being able to have the civil rights as their counterparts. This is what, so when they saw a Black person on the cover of a magazine for the first time, when my parents remember schools integrating, and my parents grew up in Maryland just like I did. So, you know, and they grew up in a suburb in Maryland. Like my dad more so in the country, but my mom, I guess you could say at that point was a modern Black suburb where she could remember people owning their own businesses and stuff like that. So actually seeing Black people on the screen, they can remember when they saw Motown groups on TV for the first time on white television programs, when they integrated schools, how people treated them differently, how the N word was used derogatory, in a derogatory sense as a way to tear down people. So I think that actually for us, when a movie came out in the 90s as kids, and we were trying to get into the R-rated movies then too as well, we took for granted that we got to see a Black movie come out, a couple Black movies, more than one Black movie come out a year and enjoy it. So we didn't even think about what groundbreaking changes were being made with a Spike Lee, with a John Singleton, and things that my parents didn't get to see. So I think that that's kind of cool. And also, except it's great for Ryan Coogler to be able to see that growing up as well. Okay,
All right, we
that's
hit
why I got to
that.
throw up my hands because this is my one of my personal favorites. Rel knows
Mine
this.
too. Mine
Yeah,
too.
it's one.
Mine
It's
too. Yeah. I know I don't say it as often as you say it, but this is by far one of my favorite movies of all time.
I mean, of course, Spike Lee again. That's surprising that Spike Lee is on Ryan Coogler's list twice. Again, like we said, he got as a young boy got to grow up and actually have examples, just like we did. Got to have examples of Black filmmakers as opposed to my parents being able to see a lot of that. So, of course, this is the biographical picture of famed civil rights icon Malcolm X. Now, what was cool was the school I was attending at the time was having us read the autobiography of Malcolm X, leading up to the film coming out, and then as uh, you know, classes of all the classes that were learning that were actually studying the book, we all got to go to the movies to see when it debuted. So, or to see when it premiered. So we actually got to go and see the film together. And I even remember a Black girl I went to high school who was very critical of Malcolm X, actually, and even with the book had so much to say. After seeing this film, she actually said that she had a better appreciation for what he was trying to do as a civil rights leader.
And it's so weird because we're watching Godfather of Harlem, and the perception that America had of Malcolm X, certain people in America had, and I guess certain people even within the Black community had of Malcolm X, was all orchestrated by the CIA and
Mm-hmm.
FBI. And it's so like when you watch this movie, you get a sense that this man really was about peace. He just went about a different approach from Martin Luther King, but he wasn't a violent man. He wasn't out there telling people to get their guns and do all types of looting and stuff like that. But, he just had a different approach, but they painted him so negatively because of his approach was a little bit more confrontational than Martin Luther King. So it's unfortunate that, it took years, almost 92, for people to change their perception of Malcolm X. And that's
Yeah.
what makes his film even more monumental now that you said that, right?
And impactful because
Yeah.
people got to see him from a human standpoint. And
Yeah.
from that, now you see everybody playing Malcolm X in whatever series and film
I
that
know.
Malcolm X is featured in. So it is interesting now that for someone that was like you said, such a controversial figure when he was actually laying the
Mhm.
groundwork to to now being someone that you can't have any film of an era of Martin Luther King. I
Yeah.
mean, not Martin Luther King, I'm sorry, of Muhammad Ali. Like,
Yep.
there's now going to be a series that Michael B. Jordan is exec producing, and they're already casting. I think it's Michael Ealy's playing Malcolm X. So
Mm.
it's a lot of, Malcolm X was a huge part, particularly of people that were actually affiliated with the nation, and of course, that were practicing Muslims in this country. He and black people that were practicing Muslims in this country, at some way, in some way, shape, or form, in that era, were impacted by Malcolm X.
Yeah.
So I just think that that's what I loved about this film. Now, it is frequently regarded as one of Spike Lee's best works, and such a definitive performance, of course, from the man, the myth, the legend, Denzel Washington. At the same BAM screening that he spoke about some of his other top five films, Coogler spoke about seeing the film as a young child with his father and the massive impact it had on him. And he said, Malcolm X was a big one for me because I'd never seen a black man that powerful, he said. There was a point in the film where Malcolm X showed up that everybody knew he's in prison and he's got glasses on. And my dad said, there he is. We had been watching the movie the whole time, but he was waiting for that Malcolm to show up. And the reason why I like that he said it that way was because, as we know, because the film in itself is like 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
It takes us from Malcolm's childhood through his time. Malcolm did admit to having a criminal livelihood at one point, where he was known as Detroit Red. Right, was Detroit Red, or was it?
Yeah, Detroit Red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Denzel Washington, as we know, is one of the best to ever do it. And particularly if we're talking about black actors at the top, he is definitely at the top. And he, we got to see him play that slick talking criminal.
Yeah.
And he abused drugs, he drank heavily, he was a numbers runner. And of course, he ends up being reformed in prison, and that is where he starts practicing Islam.
Yeah.
And actually starts to come into who he is as Malcolm. And so that is why I love where he says that, where he saw him actually show up as Malcolm. I just think that's fantastic. That is so, shows you how he always thought as a storyteller.
Yeah.
That he could pick up on that
Yeah.
too. And he was saying, I was like, okay, I guess the movie's gonna get better now. I remember being inconsolable when they killed Malcolm, but then the kids come home and the kids say, I am Malcolm X. Okay, at the end, I was like, dude. And then it put in my head, oh, this is a movie. Seeing the kids saying that was a big deal. It was more than a movie.
I think one of the kids was what's her name too?
John David Washington.
John David Washington.
It was so funny because I remember, that's the beauty of Spike Lee too, though. Spike Lee, even though he is classically trained as a filmmaker, Spike Lee was like, I'm gonna do my thing. And I've always respected that about him as a filmmaker. And so by him moving in that, the way he moves, I love that. And I love the fact that he doesn't always stick in a typical 3-act structure.
Yeah.
And I do like that about it. I mean, I've known other people that have made jokes about it. They were like, Spike Lee don't know how to end a movie, or he doesn't know when it should just end. I don't know if it's so much of him, especially like the more I've grown in this industry, being a part of it. I don't know if it's so much of like not knowing where to end it.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things, because he really built up a system of support of people that were really supporting him, and really allowing him to be an artist. I think it was like, this is a story I want to tell. Will you help me make this or not? And I just think that's so incredible.
Yeah.
Because we even know the story about his editor, which we could tell one day, because I'd almost worked with his editor on marketing for a film he did through his wife. And I remember particularly like the story he even told. He didn't even know how to edit initially, so like he learned how to edit doing the first project with Spike. And he even told the story about the open for Malcolm X, and how Spike Lee came up with that, as they were in edit. And he at the time thought, what are you doing, Spike? And it was so, people, it's so monumental. Like
Yeah.
seeing the Rodney King beating as the American flag burns into an X.
Mm.
Classic.
Yeah.
So I just love this because you get to see a filmmaker being shaped by seeing a black filmmaker being shaped by another black filmmaker who said, I'm doing this is how I'm doing it my way.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like one of Ryan Coogler, because I just think that where Ryan Coogler is now, you're just going to keep seeing him, which I kind of think you see the same with Spike Lee as well.
Yeah.
I feel like Sinners might be his Malcolm X, and we're just going to keep seeing him push them because we saw Spike Lee continue to grow. Like Inside Man was
Yep.
incredible. The Black Klansman,
Yeah.
outstanding. And I do think High Low, even the trailer feels different from like traditional Spike Lee
That
trailers.
is true.
So it's just, I just think that I like the fact that we've got to grow with Spike Lee, and the same with Ryan Coogler. And what do you think in terms of like Sinners being his Malcolm X? Do you agree with that or no?
I don't agree because who knows what's going to be next, right? Like, so I have to
That's
wait.
yeah,
I have to wait and see.
yeah,
Like, but the reason why I lean on saying yes is another reason too. Sinners, when you said that Spike Lee, basically he's, just so people know, Spike Lee teaches filmmaking at
yes,
NYU. So he, even though he breaks the rules, he understands the rules so he can break them. So if you're aspiring filmmaker, understand that, like, yes, it's all cool to be abstract and different. Make sure you understand the rules to know how to effectively break them, right?
yes,
Now, why I like Sinners is supposed to be a horror film, but he broke a lot of the rules of traditional horror and made a film with horror elements. And that's why, like, some people, there's a small percentage of people who don't like the movie because I think they were going in looking for something that it wasn't. And majority of the people love this movie because it was a movie first and horror second.
yes,
And to go in and say, I want to make a beautiful movie, showing different cultures, including amazing music and a period piece, and it'll be a horror movie after, right? Like, and that's why I think this will be his Malcolm X, because he understood the rules and he broke them.
And I also think you're going to continue to see, yeah, because this was the first one that I think was 3 hours in 30 minutes.
Mm.
And also, like you said, he does. I love that you made that distinction and he understands the rules and broke them. The reason why I said Sinners might be his Malcolm X is what he said of what Malcolm X did for him,
Mm.
that it was more than a movie. And that's what I feel like Sinners was
Yeah.
in terms of the messaging.
Yeah.
So I do feel like that's why you're going to kind of see the growth from there
Yeah.
in terms of him. But I do feel like there's a lot of young filmmakers that went to watch Sinners and picked up, whatever, even if they don't have Final Draft or Celtics or whatever,
Yeah.
and just started drafting an
Yeah.
idea because of just what the impact that film had on a lot of people.
I agree. I agree. No, I definitely think so. It was very inspiring. And it's funny because I was
No
like,
shocker that this actor isn't on the list more than once
yeah.
for Ryan Coogler. And I think part of that too is just because if you want to work with anybody if you're a filmmaker, you want an actor of Denzel's caliber to be in front of your camera, just because the honor of being able to direct him has to be just, I can only imagine. But he also shouted out this film from 1995, Devil in a Blue Dress. Remember when this came out? He said it was a major influence on Sinners because it was a neo-noir from Carl Franklin, starring Denzel Washington as an ex-GI turned private investigator in post-World War II Los Angeles, who gets wrapped up in a massive scandal when he's assigned to find the missing lover of a mayoral candidate. It's just an incredible piece of cinema and an incredible film noir. Klugler said of the film. I agree with that. I agree with that. It's also another actor that is so underrated that was in this project and was a phenomenal number two to Denzel's number one, and that's Don Cheadle.
Mm.
And Don Cheadle was still growing as an actor at that point.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you,
Don Cheadle.
he was a young Don Cheadle. And let me tell you, there were some scenes where I was like, it looked like those two were battling on who was going to outact each other. It was he was funny, he was very cunning, and I think because he was a character, it's kind of like what the Hughes brothers talked about with Menace to Society. They had to make someone that was a little bit more despicable than Denzel's character in this film,
Mhm.
and that's what Don Cheadle's character was, and he just blew, my father. I remember I do measure a lot of times in certain films I watch, like also by my dad, because he's so into acting and dialogue. And so when I see really great, really strong acting, really strong dialogue, I think it's one of the many things that influenced me writing, being a writer, is because my dad has such an appreciation for it. So I just love this. And this film, of course, is based on a book. The writer, because you watched part of his master class. It's by Walter Mosley. He's the author.
Yes, I did. Yep, because he talked about this movie. I mean, he talked about this book at length.
And because this book got optioned,
Yeah.
and you know what's so cool about Denzel is playing Easy Rollins, Ezekiel. What I loved about this project in particular, and just going back to Klugler's list, is yes, it was a very cool film, a very cool neo-noir film, but also it really addressed passing in a very clever way, which Ryan Coogler, like, I do like how he said it influenced sinners, because how everybody got excited that Haley Steinfeld is like a pinch black. In this project, it stars a black
Pinch
actress as
black.
well, Jennifer Beals,
Yeah.
which a lot of people don't know,
Instead of pinch black.
because folks tried it with that. So yes, she is also a black woman, the star of Flashdance, and a Yale graduate. So, she's an exceptional. But if anybody remembers Flashdance, remembers the poster of Flashdance, that is this woman right here, Jennifer Beals. And she is a biracial woman. So she is, her father was African American and her mother was Irish American.
No.
She's from the South Side of Chicago.
Oh,
So,
Block.
no, see,
Now I don't know if Oak Block is South Side Chicago though. That's Kanye's from South Side, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it's kind of cool. I remember like being little and Flashdance being such a big deal. I did not know she was 18 in this movie. The man that she plays opposite of,
Oh Lord.
how old was he in this? Michael Nori, because she was a professional ballerina who aspired to become. So she was an 18-year-old wielder at a steel mill in Pittsburgh.
Oh, so she was playing 18 as an 18-year-old. Okay.
Yeah, but still, I mean, like,
Yeah.
he was much older. He he was the owner of the steel mill. So it was a power dynamic. You see what I'm saying? Like, it was survival. Now when you look back at some
Yeah,
of these
yeah, yeah.
stories,
That's
you're
what I'm gonna
like,
say. Things that you look back, like you normalized it when you were young because that's just what storytelling was, and that's just how society was accepting of it. Now you look back, you're like, oh no, that was inappropriate.
yeah, it wasn't for, and so Jerry Bruckheimer was a producer. It was the first collaboration between he and Don Simpson, who was a longtime collaborator of him. And this kind of set a tone for a lot of 80s, in a lot of 80s films at this time were really big on music, really big on, the music kind of helped to drive the story, and that was What a Feeling. And if y'all remember that song by Irene Cara.
Yep, I actually do.
So that was one, and of course the iconic poster of her in the sweatshirt, with half off her shoulder, half on. And according to the actress, it was by accident that she cut a large hole at the top.
That's hilarious.
And it became iconic. People started wearing, I remember as a
Yeah.
kid, wearing their sweatshirts like this.
I mean, to this day, you'll
To
still
this
see
day,
some.
people still, I mean, it's still a very big
You could
influence.
buy it.
You could buy it like that now. I mean, it was
It was
actually,
an
and it
accident.
became a popular trend. And of course, it's great sound of music, because she wanted to become a professional ballerina, but she was a young dancer. And everybody remembers the bucket of water, being thrown on her in the chair. Like, Flashdance was crazy. Like, it was so big. So even Robert Ebert, and they loved the great sound, Flashdance, simply signifying, signifying nothing. But, he was dirty for that. Well, he kind of clowned it, but still, it was a big deal. And she if you ever get a chance to watch it, I'd say watch Flashdance.
Which I have never watched.
It's a class, huh?
I never watched.
Oh, we have to watch it. It only had a budget of $7 million and brought home $201.5 million in the box office. So it's a big deal. Paramount Pictures.
Can she actually dance?
Oh yeah.
Jennifer.
I mean, I think she was trained for the project.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, as a kid, you just remember hearing it and you just wanted to get up and do the like dances and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a big deal back then.
Oh wow, that's an interesting one to put.
I am surprised of this one. Not okay. I'm gonna tell you why it doesn't surprise me.
Okay.
It does, but it doesn't. So let's talk about what Coogler said about this. Love Jones, directed by Theodore Witcher, 1997. He praises the cult classic, which is a romantic dramedy starring Lorenz Tate, and Nia Long. I know.
How's that right?
I struggled with that.
Yeah.
And I love me some Lorenz Tate too. As a poet, and Nia Long was a photographer, they developed feelings for each other despite mutual reluctance to commit to a relationship. He says it's just a perfect movie because the chemistry is off the charts. That is what Ryan Coogler said. I think you know what I like about why he's picking each film? Each film has actually moved him.
Yeah.
For different reasons.
Yeah.
He's picking it from a filmmaker. You know, it's not one particular. It doesn't have to check several boxes. It's one thing within, and so you know how you'll laugh at me about certain things that I'll watch. You like, maybe, but the acting was bad, and but it could be like the chemistry in the class, in the chemistry in the cast. It could be just all the elements, right? Like sometimes it could be like the scoring, which you'll pick up on a lot. Scoring can drive things. You know, you only notice scoring and bad editing and when it's bad, right? Or bad acting. Like the reason that
talent. Let's say scoring.
Sometimes people can miss.
No. I mean, like I notice it when it's good too. Good scoring.
You can notice
good scoring. Like if we're talking about scoring, Forever, that TV show, the streaming show, that did a really good job.
They did a really good job with
that's like the most recent memory. I know there's Sinners great scoring. It stood out to me.
Like, Sinners, what I liked about Sinners is it kind of did something similar to, which is interesting that's not on the list, but that one might not have influenced him because of with Sinners. I guess you could say Devil in a Blue Dress because of the period of it that influenced him. But the reason why I say that I'm actually surprised School Days because it was a musical that Spike Lee did.
It's a musical. Yeah.
One of the great things about a Ryan Coogler that, like we said, he has came out of USC with a community that he had built within that system and of support that can help really with that, just accentuate the genius that's already there, because I don't know how much background he has in terms of music.
Yeah.
And that being kind of but yet he had a film that was so heavily influenced by music. And I do think there are people that just naturally have an ear for it and know what's good and what's not. I think people can develop one. Definitely, you know, you can definitely develop, like, you know, when something works and when it doesn't. And I also think that, you know, because he came through school with a Ludwig Göransson who's proved to be like the next Danny Elfman, you know, he's definitely one of those guys he is the current Danny Elfman. I don't even say because he's scoring so many other projects outside of just working with Proximity and collecting awards. So I do think, you know, when you are blessed to work with someone with a musical talent like that and you want to write a script so heavily influenced by music, I definitely believe that it does help to have that in your
be that box. Good, man.
You should. I want people to understand this. You, as a filmmaker, you don't have to do everything by yourself. If you are doing everything by yourself and you want to be a filmmaker, you're already setting yourself up to fail.
Yeah.
You have to have a team. You do. I remember my project that failed 2 years ago. The first thing that the director of Really Love told me, we're connected through family friends, she said, if you were the person doing the majority of the lifting and you were the smartest person in the room, you already set yourself up to fail. It is truly collaborative. And that is what we don't give Ryan Coogler enough credit for. He had the pieces in place on the chessboard. So I think that is something that you have to, and it's the relationships. He has incredible relationships that he already had and continued to build in this industry that just makes his arsenal so much stronger.
Sure. Wow. So still, it's a good movie. I don't remember it too well
I know
because
I need to watch Love Jones.
I wasn't into romantic films at that point, but I watched it. I
It's a
seen it.
big 90s thing too.
Yeah,
So it is interesting. Like Spike Lee was one of the few kind of doing, more day in the life
yeah.
biographical pieces in the 90s where a lot of other people were doing
There was
love,
a lot of them.
a lot of black love
Yeah.
films. Romantic dramedies was huge, or romantic dramas.
Yeah.
And I think because it's something that, let's be honest, like people know if you can grab a woman to go sit in a seat, and we're the biggest consumers in terms of the sexes or the species, I should say, we're going to go first.
Mm.
So, we're going to go sit and spend the money and go so naturally we are the most marketed to when it comes to projects. It's why YA does so well. It's why,
Mm.
romantic comedies or romantic dramas are still even getting made. And because they know we'll sit and watch it.
Yeah. No, that's true.
It's the reason true crime is the biggest genre, right? Because women
Yeah.
unfortunately love crime porn.
But one day we got to do. I know we talked about. We wanted to do a discussion about how come these movies didn't
Yeah, that's
transfer
gonna be another
over
one.
after the 2000s. We had so many of these leading up to 2000, and then all of a sudden the studio stopped backing these types of movies, leaving a lot of black actors kind of out there, like talented black actors, not getting the same type of work they were getting in the 90s.
Definitely.
Interesting.
I have to watch this one. I have not watched this one. Okay. So no, for those of you that are familiar with Ryan Coogler, you know that one of his biggest mentors is Christopher Nolan.
Mm.
He talks about it. They speak quite a bit when he's,
Yeah.
preparing, especially of course with him, both of them doing superhero or comic book based projects. So he's definitely been a huge support in Ryan's career. So he also praised Christopher Nolan. He, of course, praises Nolan, calls him a mentor, and highly recommended his 1998 debut feature, Following. It's a 16 millimeter black and white thriller, low budget film, which focuses on a young unemployed writer who trails strangers around the streets of London for creative inspiration and unwittingly gets sucked into a criminal plot
That's
in
kind
the
of fun.
process. It is cool. A lot of the Christopher Nolan, he says, a lot of the Christopher Nolan trademarks are in this movie. So it's great if you coming up to get a little taste of this. So it's great if you're coming up to get a little taste of this. That's what Ryan Coogler says. So we know that he definitely has influenced. I think he took pieces from Tenet to help with the twin aspect for Sinners. And again, he's definitely called Christopher Nolan a mentor and someone that he tends to speak with quite frequently when he's entering a project, especially something that is a project that is in that has that Christopher Nolan has had, I guess you could say, similar themes or plots within his projects. He'll tend to tap into him as a resource. Kind of not a bad mentor to have, I shall
No,
say.
not at all.
Not a shocker with this one. This is a lot of people's favorites.
Back to what we were talking about. Yeah.
Love and basketball, and not surprising, just based on Ryan Coogler's relationship in general and his personal
I was
life.
gonna say, yeah, it makes sense
It
because he's a married man.
He's a married man. He's a husband and he has kids. Also, if you're growing up, I would say in the black community like he was in the late 80s, early 90s, black love and black romance was still a huge part of our culture. Not so much anymore. But he says that this 2000 debut feature of Gina Prince Bythewood, one of my faves, is a sports romance, of course, starring Sanaa Lathan and Omar Epps as two childhood friends and athletes as they pursue their professional basketball dreams while slowly falling for each other. The reason he related to this film is because he and his wife, producer Zenzi Klugler, met as student athletes.
I was
And
gonna say too, the basketball part, like a lot of
yes,
guys resonated with this because it was love and basketball. So it's like that weird thing. If you're a big basketball fan, it will really kind of like hypnotize you in a way as a
it's
basketball fan to
good.
watch a romance. Like, oh man, this is a beautiful movie. And yeah, basketball.
She did a great job with this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually, I know, I have, it's funny. Colleen loves this movie. It's one of her favorites. So I even know people from
outside of our culture.
Yeah, Caucasian persuasion that love this film. And I think because it is just like a classic romantic dramedy. And of course, he says that Ryan Coogler says he can't look at this movie and not see he and his wife.
Oh, that's amazing.
And he says the ending of this movie puts a lump in your throat. You know why I love him too. He's not afraid to be vulnerable and really talk about, where he's had some pitfalls in his life. He's talked about, of course, falling into debt as an artist, which we know all too well. And then also, as you're following your dreams. And then he talks about, of course, the path that hasn't been so easily paved for he and his wife and how they've struggled. So in their own relationship and have had to overcome things. So I love that. And I love this. And I also love these as that it put a lump in his throat. Not to be like, oh, I almost cried at a romantic dramedy.
And I think that's what made these movies special, especially for black men, because we're taught to be hard all the time. We got to be tough, got to be gangster, got to be this and that, and these movies one portrayed us as softer,
Yeah, that's true.
and also taught us to be softer, right? Like if you watch this movie and saying it's okay to love, it's okay, especially within with black men to a black woman, is like it's okay to love on her and to treat her like a queen, and but also that you're gonna make some mistakes, you're gonna have some pitfalls in your relationship, but if you really truly love this person, it'll work out in the end. So I think that's one of the big things that a lot of, not just loving basketball, but a lot of these black movies, black romance movies did, go leading up to 2000. This one was actually in 2000, and it's unfortunate that, like I said, we don't see them as often. We seen the British one, Rye Lane, recently.
Yeah, Rye Lane was really good.
So
I was trying to give my brother the thing.
Wait, he's trying to send you a message?
The ad.
Oh.
Creative.
Yeah. He's following us.
Oh.
Wow, I don't know. He's right here. Lunar Legend 7 is following us. Why he acting like he don't know who we are?
No, I don't know if he was in. This was earlier.
Oh, yeah, he's following us. Yeah, see.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
two people follow, somebody and this person and your brother.
How do I know?
Yeah, he's not in the room though. He's not,
I know.
He's not chatting. So yeah, so I think I would love, like, Rye Lane is a British, but we haven't had too many black romance films, and obviously of a late. Hopefully we'll get a little resurgence. Hopefully Netflix or somebody will see with the success of Forever as a series, and how critically acclaimed Rye Lane was, that maybe it's time to start reinvesting in black romance films.
Yes.
And
And maybe kind of showing that, what black love, like when we all sit online and say black love, what we mean by it. It's not just something we do to trend or to start so everybody be like, why is it gotta be about race? It is something beautiful about a black relationship because of just the societal pressures and systematic, structures and oppression that we tend to face as a race in this country, that it is something beautiful about the love and support that we show one another when we're in a relationship. And so I do love that. And I love that these films resonated with him. Love and Basketball is definitely like a cult classic. And, these two are at the top of their game at that time, Sinai and Omar. So many classic people in this too, Gabrielle Union was in the film, Regina Hall.
yeah.
I still love that line. I remember using that all
Boris
the time.
Cujo, right?
Boris Kojo was in the film.
Who's their parents? I forgot.
Oh my gosh. Avengers. Alfred Woodard.
Oh, okay.
And then the Smooth Brother, the one I think he was played her father. I can't remember his name.
Not Allstate, right?
No, but Allstate was in there too. Allstate was his father.
Oh, Kyla Pratt was in it too.
She played the young version of her. Kyla Pratt played the young version.
Debbie Morgan was
Debbie
in it.
Morgan was. She played
Harry
the father.
Lennox.
Harry Lawrence.
Lennox.
Harry Lennox. Sorry, Harry Lennox. I love him.
Yeah.
That brother's smooth. And Blacklist.
Yeah, Blacklist, yeah.
Fish Tank. Okay, I want to watch this one. This is by Audrina Arnold.
Field. Okay. We're here now. All right, what's fish tank?
The reason I love this too is that, Ryan Coogler has also spoken out recently about women filmmakers being supported more because women, when people love to joke about women are so emotional, they're so complex, they have so much going on. One of the things I love about, he says that's what makes them great filmmakers because they see things in so many different layers and, they can tell so many rich stories. And he really is a huge supporter of female filmmakers. So I actually really love that he brought this one up. This was, of course, at the BAM screening of Black Panther, where he brought up Andrea Arnold's acclaimed 2009 film Fish Tank, which stars Katie Jarvis as Mia, a rebellious teen living in East London who develops a tempestuous, tempestuous relationship with her mother's new boyfriend.
Oh.
So it's one of the first movies he said he said it's one of the first movies he ever saw that made him understand or made him feel like he understood women more. It's a big statement right there. And Kluger went on to say, "That's the best way I can describe the feeling I had watching it."
Okay.
And I love it because the name of it is Fish Tank too. So it's like he saw within the fish tank who women were.
It's interesting. She names a lot of her movies after animals too. Bird, cow, bug. um,
She's a British filmmaker. Again, another group of, another country that does it well
I love
is
Dick.
the UK.
Wasp. Dog. Yes, I did say that.
I'm gonna
And,
watch this one. I'm gonna watch this one.
and she directed a few episodes of Big Little Lies.
Oh, okay, okay. So Big Little Lies coming back. The series is returning to HBO.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Michael Fassbender.
Yeah. Magneto.
And I also know him as the slave master in 12 Years a Slave. So, okay, A Prophet by director Jacques. Oh, this is French. I should know this.
Come on now.
Or Audiard, 2009. This drama, A Prophet, stars Tahir Rahim as a French Algerian. So is criminal who is sentenced to 6 years in prison and slowly rises through the prison's hierarchy to become a drug trafficker.
Oh, I know what he directed. Oh Lord.
Coogler named this as one of his favorites during his 2018 BAM screening of Black Panther. He said, I saw it during my first time out of the country. He said it's a big deal to him.
Oh Lord. You know what he directed?
What?
He's the French director.
Okay.
Who's the
Oh my gosh. He did the one that just came out, the
Yeah.
Mexican film that insulted everybody.
He wrote and directed
What's the name?
Amelia Perez.
Amelia Perez.
When I first thing I saw was Amelia Perez. And it's crazy because now he's an Oscar winner, right? And won Best Picture? No.
No.
No, okay.
I forgot what won Best Picture this past year. But the reason that this is I think the comments from the lead really dampened its campaign.
Nora one. That's right. That's right.
A Nora one, yeah.
But it was nominated for Best Picture.
It was nominated for Best Picture. One of the reasons it explains why everybody made such a big deal out of Amelia Perez, because it kind of felt like it came out of nowhere with this French director, and I was like, okay, but because people have loved him for a long time. I knew he was a big deal, but one of the things I will have to say that I love about people that get to really be artists and still kind of survive for a living is you get to immerse yourself in so many different things. Like you really have time to really get to watch what other people are doing. You get to travel and get to see what other artists are doing. And he got to see so many artists in so many other countries.
Yeah.
It's hard when you work in television. Like TV is a grind. You got to keep working. It has now become a paycheck to paycheck gig. It is not the kind of deals you used to get. So you are exhausted. So it is not the same, I would say, where you always worked hard, but you don't really get to enjoy the breaks like you used to.
Yeah.
Like you got to figure out what the next hustle is. So I don't really think you get a chance. Like I admire people like him that got a chance to really just immerse themselves in film culture and take in so many different other artists and what they're making. And
well, also I think the school too.
USC. I actually have a former colleague that went to USC who's also a friend and just working on her short for one of her film classes for her MFA program. USC They train them very well. Let me
Mhm.
say that it's they actually you already come in with a voice into the program, but they just know how to really just develop and grow that community to be, and that's why they come out doing it. And again, like you said, they get to immerse them into films,
Yeah.
different projects. So this is his not top 10, I said that wrong.
Top
This is his
12.
top 12 favorite films that he
It's
wants you to see.
Yeah, no, and I hopefully it is, and it's cool because it's quite a bit of films that we never seen.
Hmm.
So that means we have some because sometimes you get stuck, not you, but people get stuck
Yeah,
watching the same types of films, even though they're new films, they're the same types of films. And I think,
particularly in America.
yeah, I think this will be kind of good though that we can get to see some new some yeah non-American fresh films and maybe even revisit some classics that he mentioned as well.
I mean, just these frames alone that like he has on here just shows you the visual style of storytelling too. Like this is
Yes.
so iconic with Tina and Mookie. You know, this is Ricky and his mom. I mean, Denzel in this temple, these shots they got in this
Yeah.
temple, some of the best, I'm telling you. And then this is Fish Tank.
Yeah.
So just the visual, like of just the freeze frames, and that's what you talked about too, the texture and how they can make even a frame with a person that feels so full,
Yeah.
which is some again production design, and that's what you talk about. Like Tyler Perry looked like all his stuff was done on a play set.
Yeah.
It looked like you just watching the play, and
Yeah.
it might not have been a play to start with. It's crazy. Like
Yeah.
I would say I would say that Straw was probably one of his most dynamic posters.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Dynamic. Yeah.
And maybe I can't remember where Jasmine Blues was. I gotta look at it. Let's see. I can't remember with that. I mean, even this look a little.
You say you just look a little. I don't know.
Why is this? Why is somebody up there was so
Why he on
good?
it? Get that here, chief.
But like, if you look at this,
Yeah.
what is that?
That looks like AI.
It was AI, I think.
That don't even look real.
Mm,
There you go. That still look like AI.
yeah.
No, I mean I think it's the real poster art. It just don't look. It just
Well,
looks.
it looks fuller because they threw this light in here.
Yeah.
And what are these twinkles?
Because first of all, this had nothing to do with even the movie. If you watch the movie, you
I
know
know
it's
it's so
not
crazy.
love story like that. Like,
Oh my gosh, I didn't know Terrence Blanchard was part of the soundtrack. He's a huge Spike Lee collaborator.
mm.
It's crazy.
Well, the sound might be
The
good.
soundtrack was good. It was,
Netflix might have threw a little change
yeah.
for that, but yeah, this movie wasn't.
Wow.
You still can't believe it. You still scrolling through it.
I know.
First of all, that's not even the. Was he the lead? I thought the
Yeah,
light skinned boy was the.
no, remember he was no, this kid was the
Oh,
lead.
okay,
Joshua Boone.
gotcha.
Yeah. I feel like he's done. Oh, he's from Portsmouth.
Mm.
Party down P Town.
He done stage.
He does a lot of stage.
Yeah, he Broadway too. Yeah, just like the other so he just got a couple of Broadway
Robin.
guys. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so we'll come out of this for right now. But yeah, just that's what I wanted to show, like just the difference between like you could just look at these freeze frames and even the poster art looked crazy on that movie, but whatever.
So you gonna give people five inspiration. These
Oh yeah,
don't
that's a
have to
good
be a
one.
definitive.
Okay,
This could just be like off
just
the top of
five off
your
the
head.
top. Okay, so definitely Malcolm X is in mine, of course. Boys in the Hood for sure.
Those are your now. These is not favorites. These are inspirational films too, like that
Oh
inspired
yeah, yeah, yeah. Denzel
that you
Washington for
want people
sure.
that you be like that need to see.
Definitely Malcolm X. Definitely Boys in the Hood.
Okay.
I will say, I will say, loving basketball. I got those sister up in there too. I'll also, let's do another one. I will say Origins.
Ooh. Okay.
Visually, insane. And Terrence, this Ava DuVernay, and
If you want to go past five, go for it. Yeah, I just said five. I didn't think you were gonna knock down four
The
stars.
Woman King, another Gina Prince Bythewood.
Okay.
I thought visually, acting,
Yeah.
directing, I thought was exceptional. People took a lot of hits on that story. I was very turned off at how they did that.
Well, there's a difference between is this historically accurate, which I'm not here to debate that because I wasn't around, but as a storyteller, right? Like this is no one said this was a historical piece.
Right.
This is still a film for entertainment, and a lot of people forget that, right? Malcolm X took a lot of liberties as well, right? Like so, this film is still for
Right.
liberties,
It wasn't rip for
but
rip from that in terms of from I think Shorty was like based on a friend he had.
but was Woman King a good story?
And
And
I thought it was a good
it's a
story.
good story. Yeah.
Like because we went in watching it, and we know how critical we can be at seeing stuff from the motherland. Y'all know how you can get, but I just thought it was very good in terms of from that standpoint. So okay, where am I at? I did Malcolm X. I did Love and Basketball, Boys in the Hood, Origins, Woman King. I will say and there's more because I want to like he did. I like how he took something from each different perspectives too. I will say the practical effects, the use of practical effects in Nickel Boys, I just thought was
Yeah.
fantastic. So it's a recent one that I really loved in terms of how they did that. I will say, as a child, in terms of things that wanted me to, the influences that made me want to be a filmmaker, E.T. for sure.
Yeah.
That was brilliant to show a friendship between a alien and an extraterrestrial and a young boy.
And it make you feel too.
It made you feel, and it just why I liked it. It showed the connection from two different people. It showed the connection between two different beings from different worlds, and that the genuine friendship can come in no matter how different you are. So I love that as a kid. I just thought that that was so touching. And Star Wars, of course. Being a child in the 80s and then when you're in the 90s, Star Wars is a huge influence for you, especially when you're able to watch it on TV. Because you might
Yeah,
let
I was
people
thinking
go to the movies. And so Star Wars for sure.
especially when it's like it's not based on a book or nothing. It's just
It's
really
just literally someone thought up the entire concept and universe and characters. Like literally, this was birthed from, oh my gosh, why was I going to call him George Michael? What is going on with my brain today?
that might as well be George Michael too. He
Uh,
looked like he would be.
don't he look like he
He
just
got
looks
some
like
abstract. Oh,
Mike?
you don't remember his last name? I know his last name.
George?
You want me to tell you?
Why?
Lucas.
Yeah, George Lucas. Sorry.
Lucas Arts, Lucas Films.
I don't know why my brain just went absent just
Oh
like that.
man, because I don't know, man.
And I love me some
He's
shit.
stuck on Sinners.
He'll tell you I love George. I love George Lucas. So
I mean, even his wife.
everyone give it up to the sister Melody Hobson. But
Oh, would you remember her name?
of course, yeah, I remember the sister. But
was
well, you know what it is? He's someone that went in, told the stories he wanted to tell, and rolled out. Like
Yep. Yes.
he was kind of like Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come in, I'm gonna win my championships, I'm gonna go home. Like he's not one of these ones
He's
that
not Hollywood. Yeah.
and I don't think Spielberg really is either. I think he loves to tell stories because you wouldn't do a Fablemans if you didn't love stories because
Yeah.
you're not doing something extremely dynamic
Yeah.
in it, but so definitely those were definitely childhood influences. I will say for Star Wars, again, like you said, everything was an original IP thought up conceptually. I just, as a writer, as a storyteller, as someone that wants to do something pure and create characters and worlds that people love, you don't get any more influential than what George Lucas did with Star Wars. Also, again, what he had to do to create those worlds. A lot of the action figures and models that kids were playing with from that era were influenced by, what he did to shoot the film.
Yeah.
So the ships and stuff you saw were like literally model sized ships, like kids' toys that he was flying through and filming. Insane. Didn't have the technology that the newer Star Wars film series had and what he did
to make it look
to
better,
make it look
better than what they look now.
than what they look now with the technology. Insane. So I have to say, blown away. He'll always be one of my favorites. I was definitely hugely influenced by that. I will say, and then again, like I said, the same with ET, another original IP concept that was I thought was exceptional. Mm. Never ending story, just because it was showed a child's imagination.
Okay.
And it was one of those things that would come on television a lot as I was growing up that I would just stop and watch.
Yeah.
Like, it's really cool. Because you basically, it's a classic story of a kid trying to run away from bullies, but it's such a writer's story because he escaped into a world in a book
Mm.
that was within a book. Fantastic. And then it was technically a real world at the same time. It was, or another dimension. Amazing. So that's another one of mine that I would say that I love. I'm at like 9, so I feel
Yeah.
like I need to go to 10.
All right, make it even.
But this one is kind of a hard one. It's definitely something with music because I've always loved things with music. There you go. Thank
Yes.
you. And I'm going to take, because as a kid, when you get to see a kid singing and dancing, even if she was an orphan, fantastic. Even though it wasn't an original IP, it was based off of a radio show,
Yeah.
a play, and so a Broadway play. It's still, to me, just seeing it on a big screen, seeing all the singing and dancing and choreo with young kids, amazing. So yes, Annie, thank you, honey. And
No problem.
It was it's one of my huge influences as well. So yeah, it's my top 10.
Dope.
You want to go or no?
I mean, I'll name all of. I gotta see.
Bless you.
I can name a few. I don't know if I get to 10.
How about top 5?
All right.
Dead or alive, and it's just off one LP.
All right. So we'll start. We'll start off with, these are movies that you should watch.
Okay. Oh yeah,
Not
all
just,
the ones I named you should watch too.
yeah. So
in Star Wars, I would say the first 3, 4, 5, and 6.
So you should watch. One is, because I've been so big on this movie, Chinatown. I think, like, if you want to write mysteries and understanding like the character development and understanding like how like to write a really good script, and it's a slow burn, I definitely say Chinatown, especially. And it's oddly enough too, if you want to learn a little bit of the history of California, it's a really interesting film to watch as well. Oh, and Jack Nicholson. I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like
that guy.
Yeah, that guy. Malcolm X, of course.
Yeah.
For any one reason that between Shayla and Ryan Coogler mentioned, I think for me it's just such a it was such a moment in time, because I think we saw that in school, and that's how important that movie was. It was like, it was a moment in time. Like, even if you don't take anything away from it as a filmmaker, which I think you will, it was just you have to appreciate just such an amazing, beautiful dedication to Malcolm X and to understand who this man was. And I think it's something that should be continued to be played so we don't lose sight of that history. And it's digestible, right? It's not like a documentary where, documentaries can be a little bit boring, even though Ken Burns is one of the most amazing
Documentarians.
documentarians ever. Some of his is very slow and very dry. You may not really appreciate it. So Malcolm X is something that's entertaining and digestible for you to watch.
Yeah, documentaries, it's got to be your jam to really get down with it. Like, some people can do it and some people can't watch documentaries.
To rip off Ryan Coogler again, Do the Right Thing. I do think Do the Right Thing is a must watch. I think it's just, I mean, yes, I'm from New York, so I'm biased, but I just think it's just, one, it gives a perfect day in a life film, as close as perfect as can be. And it, and like I said, I didn't even realize you're actually watching the last day Radio Raheem is going to be alive. I didn't even think about that.
We sat here and talked about it.
Yeah, until I was like, oh, you're actually watching his last day of life. and him with the radio and just and I got emotional, because you just wanted them to stop. And I think it's important to watch that movie because obviously we know something that happened not too long ago, and when you watched it, you just wanted it to stop. You just wanted somebody just to stop the cops or stop.
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
Floyd.
and that's what, yeah. So and I think just showing like a movie that is prophetic, prophetic, yeah,
Prophetic.
prophetic. Showing things that has happened and that continue to happen. I think that's also important to filmmaking. I think, and we're still dealing with racial tensions in America. Still, still a thing. So we're up to two. We did two, three, right? Do the Malcolm X, Chinatown, Malcolm X, do the right thing. Um, I'll say my last one. Last one's gonna be a good one. Might be able to guess my last one, but for let's see, for I mean, I'll go past five because I do think Star Wars is a must watch. I 100% agree. When you understand the limitations with the technology that George Lucas had at that point, and the type of movie he was able to do to transport you to a galaxy far,
It's
far away,
crazy.
like
Like what those stars are, that effect he did with them
yeah,
when they went speed ramp. It's just
one of the most influential movies of all time. Like
on film too. He had to do it with film.
yeah, I mean, you know how much you have to love being a filmmaker to have the patience to do
To have the patience
that.
to. I mean, he has filmmakers that hate him for. Oh, there's another one I left off my list, and I think I know that's gonna be your fifth one.
No, I'm sure my fifth one wouldn't be yours. It would not be.
Because I might even be able to go to 12. But go
All
ahead.
right.
Like, what were you? Okay, go ahead and say.
Actually, I'm gonna go a little further. I'm gonna go a little bit more new, American fiction.
Oh
I think
yeah, George
everybody should
Sure.
watch American fiction. It was
Yeah,
just so well acted, so well done, and it gave social commentary on
without it being
our
like,
industry.
yes,
You know,
without it being so, beating you upside the head with it.
and I think it's important for everybody to watch because you get understanding how media plays and how we could be pushed and typecast and stereotyped to create certain type of content, what I mean, that portrays us in a certain way and even is expected in that way and revered more than actual educated high level thinking
Yes,
content coming from the Black community. It's what Shayla and I struggle with, right? Like because we're not a certain type of like attention grabbing creators, we have a slower journey than maybe some other people.
yeah,
Not knocking you, I'm not saying you said. I'm more or less giving a little bit of commentary on society, less about you as a creator. But so American fiction, I think I put up there. I mean, you hit like, I mean, Origins, Nickel Boys.
I mean, these are newer projects, and they stick out in my head because in a society where we are so it's so technology driven now,
Mhm.
and it's everything has to be so big. When you see films that use practical effects and just, I guess you could say, old school blocking,
Yeah,
and just the way they build out a texture in each frame,
yeah,
it does draw your attention, because and to tell stories that are really hard to tell.
yeah.
I don't think Nickel Boys or Origins was an easy story to tell. So
No,
that's why I brought up those two as two modern day ones. And then Women King, the Woman King, just because a studio took a chance on a Black female led
yeah,
project with all Black females. Like,
yeah,
you never see that. So I thought that outside of Wakanda Forever,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they still was hating on that.
I
So I
know.
think that's why I brought up that one. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
No, it's all good. You know what? I'm before I get to my last couple, one is gonna be a surprise. One is definitely a surprise.
Okay, okay.
Um, um, Sinners. I think everyone should see Sinners.
Oh no, I was gonna put it on my list, but then I thought, was I riding it because we just did his
No,
list? But no, I
no,
agree.
I think everyone should see
For
Sinners.
every reason he listed all his top films
Yeah,
for.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like every reason he listed his top films for, like outside of Malcolm X, because of course it's not autobiographical.
Yeah,
And the first time you see Malcolm on the film, but again, the last line, it's more than a movie.
yeah.
That's why you go see Sinners. like Ralph said.
Yeah,
Just
I think you should see Sinners. Okay, so now I don't know where we at.
Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X, Chinatown, Star Wars,
mhm.
Sinners,
American Fiction.
American Fiction. Oh, you might be able to go to 10.
Yeah, I might be able to. I got two, at least two more. Let me see if I can get two before those last two that I would be like, you know what's crazy? And I know a lot of people don't want to say this because this movie is now considered overrated because every filmmaker historian now says like, oh, modern filmmaker has transcended and moved past this. And because I didn't see this movie till more recently in my life because I didn't study film, I'm gonna say Citizen Kane. I
Oh,
do think every filmmaker should watch Citizen Kane. I actually watched it, and when I watched it, I was like, "Oh, this movie is brilliant!" Like, and I get that some people feel it's overrated now because, like I said, modern filmmaker has changed, but I think like that movie made at that time is a brilliant movie, and I just think it was I think it's worth a watch. Now, what does that put me at? 8 or 7? Because I put my hands down.
ugh, okay.
All right, we losing
So we
track.
did Malcolm X, Sinners, American Fiction, Do the Right Thing, um, Chinatown, Citizen Kane. Oh, I know I'm missing something.
No, no, because you remember I said I gotta get two more and then my last two. So yeah,
Okay, so you did 6, right?
I did 7. So I got
7.
one
Okay,
more.
7. Sorry.
I got one more. Then my last two. All right. Let me see. Going through errors
Oh,
here.
I didn't say Star Wars. That's why I only had 6, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, wait. I want to change Star Wars. Sorry, I'm gonna change Star Wars slightly. The Empire Strikes Back. I think everyone should.
Because you like the villain.
No, 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 no. Yes and no. All right. One, I want to stay within this Star Wars because of what he was able to do with limited technology. So I definitely want to give it to Star Wars as a
You
franchise in
like because
general.
Lando Calrissian was a huge part of Empire Strikes Back.
Well, yes, but not that. Stop. He took a risk as a filmmaker
Oh,
to
having the
end it, cliffhang it on the villains winning.
that's true.
You know,
Especially in that time, you always wanted to
right?
see the hero win. That is very true.
Right. So I changed my Star Wars to actually just so we have a little difference too. And yeah,
And he
like
had a redemptive part in the third one
mm,
for Darth Vader that you didn't
you
expect to
didn't
see
see,
too.
so you wouldn't expect,
Yeah.
right? Like so to give villains their haha moment, and then like you said in the franchise too, to give a villain an emotional story arc was like, oh, you never really seen that in filmmaking before. So
Yeah.
I just want to change that Star Wars to that. All right, so I got three more. Um, let's see if I can get one more. Oh man, I feel like man, man, it got to be something that's like in my soul. I'm trying to think. Um, boy. Ooh, this one's hard. Well, I'll go to one of my last two.
Okay.
Everything, everywhere at once.
Oh, I forgot it. That's
I
a good
think
one.
everyone should watch that, especially coming from my perspective because I'm an editor, and what they would able to do pacing wise
Yes,
is just like something I was
that's
like
true.
I can't even imagine
As an
as the editor.
editor,
Yeah, I
yeah,
can't even
I didn't think
imagine.
of it from this.
And I think didn't the directors edit that too? No,
I,
it's like they work together like on
yeah,
all their pictures. I just couldn't imagine.
collaborative
Yeah,
directing team.
I couldn't like I was just like, oh my God. And to layer the stories the way they did, where it wasn't like just on the nose mother-daughter relationship story, but it ended up being that. And it was like, oh, this is actually at the heart just about a mother and a daughter's relationship. Oh wow. I was just like, and to bring what Q Quan,
Yeah, Quan, who was also an '80s star.
to bring him back. Yeah.
Goonies, and what else he was in? But I do remember him distinctly.
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
That's right.
Let's see. So I know my last one. I'm saving my last one. So I need one before my last one because you'll get a kick out of my last one. And oh man, we got 9. We got to think of one more. And like I said, like I may revisit this and really like dial it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is just off the cuff of like,
Okay.
you know, what influenced me as a creator and as a storyteller. And like even when sometimes when I'm editing, this may pop in my head. Um mm, mm. I'm going through the errors now. So and I don't want to steal anyone's ideas. Uh you know what? I know this one is not like this is because I'm an editor and I just appreciate what's done. It's something I never really seen. It was actually done before, but Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh yeah, that sound design.
The sound design, I have never.
It was insane.
I would do.
But James Mangold, it's like, yeah.
I was like, yeah, this is
good.
like I've never. That's a super influential. Like if you think of like sound design that you can experience, I definitely think.
Yeah,
We over here talking movies. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing, Jasmine? Jasmine and Chris, what's up?
And
yeah, Ford versus. Let me see. Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah. So you want to know my last movie?
Yeah, what's your last one? This one was good.
Can you guess it? Can you take a guess? Because it's my favorite movie of all time.
I was gonna say Godfather, but I could be wrong. Oh, it's not that one.
I wish I would have said Godfather. You want to take a guess?
So it's not Godfather?
No, that wasn't the last movie, but yeah, we gonna put that on there. I'll tell you. I'm gonna get you, sucker.
Why didn't it? Honey, really?
Yep. I'm gonna get you, sucker.
I'm surprised I'm good. Not really.
I told you that was my.
But why do you think people should watch it?
Oh,
I mean, comedically, if you want to be in comedy, I definitely think you should.
What one? I think is one of the most. It first of all, it was funny. I think it's one of the funniest movies, and it highlighted so many different sections of Black culture.
That's a good point.
In a humorous way, right? Like
that's a good point.
It tied
in
in
activists. You had the, the military heroes, the vets. You had Black exploitation. Yeah, he did have a lot.
And you didn't, and you don't, and it tied into multiple generations, right? It tied in
the current,
well, not
but past.
Yeah, it was like the hip hop generation coming into the hip hop generation from the 70s and the 60s stars, and tied it in, and it perfectly, I think, blended like using yeah, it sucks because Keenan, I kept thinking Marlon Wayans, Keenan Wayans, to transition the eras, right? Because he kind of was on that line of like, being the new school hip hop because he served in the military, so he had a little old school vibe to him as well. So, you had the old action stars and giving homage to those old action stars that, people pretty much didn't like, didn't really remember, to like the new school hip hop. It used music well.
It did use music very well.
Used music well from the different eras. I think yeah, no, it's actually a really really done film.
No, you're right.
Yeah, it's not just a comedy that you sit back and laugh.
No, you're right when you think about it. Yeah, because there's a reason you can sit and keep watching it.
Yeah. So
that's good. That's a good one.
It gave social commentary on.
It did give social on a lot of things in Black culture that even we kind of make we make fun of, or we make a light, because you know what they did for that era too. There was the activists that didn't date Black women, which is like a classic part of it. There was you had the activist that was kind of jive too.
Yeah.
And then you also had the overzealous vets, and I had a vet in my family that had all these things but didn't comment.
So we all had
Yeah.
people. It gave a uncle or a cousin or a nephew or somebody that you could relate to in our community and our culture or in our own personal family. And one of the biggest things when I talk about the social commentary, who was behind everything? Who's the one that was putting the gold in the streets? And uh it was it they didn't call
Mr.
him
Big.
Mr. Big,
Yeah.
which ended up being actually a white man.
Yeah. No, that's
So, and
actually really
that's
good.
still to this day, if you pay attention, who's in charge of all the record labels that are promoting all
Yeah,
the
that's
negative
true.
music
That is
in
so true.
in
You're
the,
right. It's a genius film when you break it down like
you
that.
know what I mean? Like who's behind putting, like when you trace back some of the violence, who makes the guns? It all ties back to white America
Well, you
and
even think of the Hood Olympics that RDC did. And
yeah.
remember he had the hood games like stripping the
Mhm.
card. Those were things that they were doing that
Still jokes
yeah,
to
still
this
jokes
day.
to this
So
day. Yeah.
I definitely think I'm Gonna Get You Sucker is a movie that I recommend everybody sees.
Nice.
Yeah, outside of it just being a comedic movie.
Good list.
Thank you. Thank you. I gotta write this down. When I
Yeah,
go
I
back,
gotta
I'm gonna
write
write
mine
that down.
down too,
I'm gonna
because
write that
before
down.
I forget.